We'll get a few people popping in a second, and then I gotta go. Instagram is a little slower, so. All right, we're good to go. Welcome everyone to Two Lost Office Hours. We're gonna let a few more people jump in before we get started, and I introduce today's guest. Man, I need a haircut, and I got a few grays on the side too. Sheesh. We'll get started in just a second. Today's gonna be a dope session. I'm looking forward to this one. We have our CEO, Greg Hirschhorn. I don't think I've ever said your last name out loud. Greg Hirschhorn.
Gregory Hirschhorn. Yeah. Hey, everybody.
How you doing today, Greg?
I'm good. It looks like people are all grouping into the conference room in the LA office over there. I think they migrated over behind you a second ago.
Yeah.
We're doing good over here.
Nice. So we'll get started in just a second. I see people coming in from YouTube. I see some Universal King. I see you there. Fashionable Syndicate LLC, LD40 Productions LLC, Doc EC. What's going on? See, we got our YouTube. So we should be broadcasting to YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. So we'll be taking your question towards the end of the session. All you need to do to ask a question is just type it in the comments, and I'll actually be putting the link in the comments if you want to join us live via video to ask your question on camera as well. So I see Megan's in here. What up, Chris? All right, cool. So let's get started. Today, as I said, we have our CEO, the big boss man, Greg Hirschhorn. How you doing, man?
I'm good, Dame. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. So should we just jump right into this? We launched some recent updates to the site. It was already an amazing site, but before we jump into that, Two Lost has been around for how many years now, Greg?
Technically live for about 4 years now.
So even 4 years ago, it was kind of already a crowded space. Like a distribution had a decent amount of players. At that time, what made you think that you could launch something that's a little different and can find its own lane in such a crowded space, even at that time?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's new distributors and record labels coming out every day. I think the issue, especially 4 years ago when me and my co-founders decided to launch Two Lost, I think it was a seemingly underserviced portion of the industry. I think there were a lot of players in the space. I think they were prioritizing a lot of the developed and kind of existing already large groups of artists and labels, and there was a very short-sighted focus on developing acts within distribution and developing labels. So the newcomers were at this massive disadvantage from very minimalistic products in the market. They worked, they were functional, but we really wanted to create an elevated service for the everyday artist and label. So when they they grew considerably, whether they didn't, it didn't necessarily matter. They still had the tools and resources available from the jump.
Nice. And I mean, we've grown substantially since 4 years ago. I think, what do we have? Over 280,000 artists and labels on the platform.
We're about to hit 300,000 by the end of this month. So pretty significant growth, especially over a small period of time.
And what would you attribute that growth to?
I think it's a big testament to the team and the product. I think we've definitely scaled up our team between our two offices in Los Angeles and New York. And I think we've done a great job with focusing on a very thoughtful and, I think the best product in the distribution space. And I think the growth is a testament of that. I think a lot of people have seen and utilized the product and have been able to experience comparable products in the market to determine that our product is the most, I guess, competitive and the best for what they're trying to do.
For sure. And you have, I think, you have a pretty unique, you have a background in music. You want to give a little bit of a background and kind of like to give people an understanding of kind of how you're approaching this.
Yeah, so I definitely have a background in music. I am young, so I don't have as extensive as a background as maybe yourself and some of the other folks at the company. But I spent some time in the major label system. I was definitely product focused, and I have a pretty technical understanding for a non-technical CEO. I mean, I'm definitely, I guess, savvy enough to understand how to influence some of the dev team to build products that I think make the most sense for our pipeline. But I'm very fortunate to have a very technical CTO, and we work very closely together. My background is definitely at the intersection of tech and music. But I think I had a pretty unique opportunity with when I kind of started building out Two Lost, because I wasn't necessarily used to the, I guess, quote unquote, old music business. And I wasn't, I guess, comfortable necessarily with that type of business and how things happened in that space. So when we decided to build out Two Lost, I think we had a really cool opportunity to do it from what I believe from the bottom up the right way, without having to kind of conform or become compatible with an outdated industry, which allowed us to move, I think, a little bit quicker because we weren't necessarily trying to conform to kind of the norms, which is a good and a bad thing, but I think it ultimately became a good thing. And there were definitely some things that we had to conform to, whether it was like, quality control processes or just kind of like copyright laws and other, like, I guess, useful and necessary boundaries in the space. But I think from the jump, we really were like, how do we do this the way where it makes the most sense for an everyday user? I just got a guitar. I want to create a song today, right? I don't really understand the business. I don't have a manager. I don't have a lawyer, but I just want to be able to sell my music online. How do I get started? And I think, being younger and, more nimble and just a little more flexible and with less to lose and less to prove, I think we were able to go out and just do it the right way from the jump.
Yeah. I mean, I think the music industry just benefits from fresh perspectives, newer ideas, and just constantly people asking why are things done this way, and why, like, just continuously asking. And if the answers don't make sense, then, build something new or attack it from a different.
Well, I think a lot of people say that a lot. I see it on Twitter all the time. And it's a great point. It's like, why do we do things? Oh, we've always done it that way, right? There's always, why do we need a beat license for this or a sample that? Or I see it a lot with the production, the independent kind of, contractor community of the music business, people that are, entrepreneurs working for themselves within a space, maybe don't necessarily have a job at a major label or a major distributor or DSP. And they want to still be involved, and they have creative opportunities to be involved, but they're like, why do I need to fit in? And I feel like the hardest thing is kind of just accepting, like, this is how it's supposed to be. And I don't think that's the case. I think, there are things that need to work in compatibility with other, like, existing, you need to be able to do business with people that are ultimately paying you, right? So you need to be able to conform to an extent, but I think there's a lot of opportunity, especially in the music business, to disrupt and do it in a productive way that actually provides real value to so many people in these, like, subsectors of the industry. It's a pretty, if you think about it, music, and especially in the recorded business, at least, which we're in, like, it's the same business it's always been. You're selling recorded music. It's just packaged or consumed or sold or experienced differently, right? The consumption might be different, but the product's the same. It's like, there should be, as tech has evolved how we consume music and create music, there should be an ever-changing scope of new services out there. And I don't necessarily think we need to change the laws, but, like, that kind of hold the music rights together. But I think it's really important for people to question why we're doing things a certain way and build products and services to kind of influence change in those areas.
Yeah. So we'll jump in just a second and get you to share your screen so we can walk through, like, some of the updates that we recently implemented on the Two Lost site. But what I like about being here at Two Lost is almost everybody has experience with artists, independent artists, and kind of building things from the ground up. So I think that we're constantly throwing out new ideas, getting suggestions on new features and things. And you guys are open to hearing them out, and you have ideas yourself. So I feel like the platform is just constantly evolving, as there's new needs for independent artists or things that we can do to make things a little bit easier, because it's ridiculously hard to make it as an independent artist these days, but more and more people are doing so.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I guess I can share my screen here and jump into the analytics portal. And I guess we'll start by saying that I definitely would love, from the comments here, and I guess anyone afterwards, if they want to email us or if you have a way of getting in touch with us outside of email, please do, and let us know if there's any suggestions or feedback you have on this. I think I'm sharing it right now, Dame. I don't know if it popped.
There you go. Yeah.
Cool. So we decided after, I think it was one of the most heavily requested products on the platform to introduce. We decided to start off by introducing a couple of platforms with the intent of introducing more platforms in the coming weeks. I just got word from some of our developers that we'll actually have Amazon and Peloton, which are in this coming soon section, available shortly. And then we intend to add a new DSP to the platform list and break down the analytics portal every month. But more to come outside of just this coming soon list. But to start, we introduced Spotify Daily Analytics, Apple Daily Analytics, Deezer Daily Analytics, TikTok Daily Analytics, and Meta Daily Analytics to the platform to get the ball rolling and get this out to everybody as soon as possible. So as you can see from up here, I'm right now navigating on the Spotify Daily Analytics. We have a breakdown over here where you can filter by all releases or just a specific release if you want to select. I want to give a heads up, by the way. We are using one of our artists and friends, Ben Beal's account here. So thank you, Ben. I'm not sure if you're watching this, for allowing us to use your account for all these demos over the last couple of months. It's been super helpful to get a real artist's account utilized in these demos. But you can filter by release here. We'll use all releases to start, and you can also pull down either all-time data or a certain subset of that time frame. Now, I will mention that this is really important, as a lot of platforms, including Spotify, for the sake of storage and I'm sure other privacy concerns, they aren't holding data on for as long as they used to, and you can no longer pull that all-time data from platforms like Spotify. So being able to have a centralized platform that has all of your specific data from all these platforms, from historical to perpetuity, as long as it's represented by us, I think is super, super helpful. We have disclaimers across the site to give you a better understanding of how this stuff works, but you can hover over here and see your daily streams for the last 3 months were filtered here on for Spotify right now. Your corresponding tracks down below, these will show you a breakdown of the dependency of your total streams based on each individual track, as well as the countries where people are streaming. Super helpful insights. Again, not necessarily anything you wouldn't see from a Spotify for Artists platform product. Playlist here, this will show you your corresponding playlists that your music is being streamed in, the corresponding curator, the followers, the total streams across, again, that time frame, and the corresponding releases. And you can then visit the playlist too, and it'll pop up the corresponding playlist for you in the Spotify product. Here's where it gets...
Does that show user-generated playlists as well?
Yes. So this is just showing you by popularity. So obviously these editorial playlists are extremely influential. But let's see. Oh, here we go. Curator doesn't have a real name there. Let's use one of these. So you'll see curator MikeSell.Jace, who has 48,000 followers on this playlist, helped Ben generate 2,902 streams for his song or songs being placed in this playlist called Mac Miller Good Vibes. So there are UGC playlists as well, but it's just rated based on the amount of streams that these playlists got, all releases in the last 3 months.
So you see not only the editorial, but the Spotify playlist, but the user
and algorithmic as well. So there's also going to be algorithmic playlists here. So you see a lo-fi rap mix. Doesn't necessarily have any followers because these are personalized playlists for the consumer, so it's an aggregate, and these are streams that were generated by these algorithmic playlists as well. And this is, by the way, just going to show you your top playlists. In the reports section, we also have an ability to pull down a CSV and export of all your playlists for your entire catalog as well.
So you also have the ability to see how many streams are generated from these playlists. So if you guys are paying for third-party placements, you'd be able to say, okay, yeah, I did get placed, but I didn't get any streams in this playlist. So it probably was,
and not just for an individual track. I think it's super important because normally this is broken down on Spotify for Artists by individual track. You can filter and group different songs that you might do a campaign for just Smile, let's say. I'll use this for an example. It loads in fairly quickly, as you guys can see here, which is super helpful. Now you'll see the dependency of these streams is completely correlated to Smile, because I just selected, and you'll see the playlist now load in. These are the playlists specifically for Smile. So I just ran a campaign for Smile, let's say, and I can see how many streams that got corresponding to the amount of followers, and I can jump in and listen to that playlist as well if I want to show support for them playlisting. Maybe you can see these updated based on the filters that I just changed.
We have a question in the chat. Chris asks, is there a way to filter by artist in a label account?
So currently there is not. We're doing this by catalog. We are adding an overview tab that will allow you to filter by artist. That is coming in a later update. And it's a very good question and a very good thought and input. And I think that's really important and big feedback we've received by labels that maybe manage hundreds of artists to be able to pull this stuff specifically by the artist. But right now the filter is by releases. And it will continue to be that way by the individual platform for now. That overview tab will allow you to overview individual artists. All this information, by the way, guys, is exportable. So if you wanted to populate these into your own, dashboards, or maybe you have like a software you can emulate this data or aggregate this data into graphs, like you can always pull this information and do that as well, or just filter the CSV by a corresponding artist.
Nice.
But I wanted to jump back into the additional information here. This is super important, super interesting, because these are inputs and KPIs that our team has actually customized and built out from information provided from these corresponding platforms. This is Spotify still. We're looking at the shuffle right here. This is the amount of your audience that listen to your music using the shuffle function, kind of attributing to passive listens, so to speak. The completion rate, these are how many of your listeners actually completed your tracks. Another really cool input. And then 24% in this case are first-time listeners. This is based on the unique user ID of the individual streams. This is also really helpful, especially if you're in discovery mode, or maybe you are using they mentioned a third party to kind of run a playlist campaign. You can better understand how many of your listeners are returning versus first-time listeners, especially if you can, again, filter that down by the time frame and the corresponding release, your total saves, your total skips of your music. And this is a really important one, as fraud has become more and more of a related concern in the independent music distribution space, especially because I've been hearing a lot about distributors having to enforce bans and restrictions on clients that are ultimately, even if they're not knowing they are ultimately subjecting their music to artificial streaming. And I think a lot of playlist campaigns and no good marketers, and just also some accidental practices, and I'm sure some intentional practices too, are attributing to these numbers increasing. You want to keep this below 2%. I think that's, sometimes you'll get artificial streams accidentally just by being added to a playlist that's, has botting activity occurring on it. But, if you're getting more than 2% artificial streams across your catalog, it can become an actual problematic thing. We do at Two Lost, and a lot of the other distributors that are part of the MFFA, the new Music Fights Fraud Alliance, are going to continue to police the platform for bad actors in the space. It looks like Ben's account is extremely healthy, especially for the amount of streams he's receiving in the last 3 months, and this is a totally fine number. But I implore anyone that has a Two Lost account that's listening to pop into their analytics. This number is on a 3-month delay, so I will mention that you need to filter by at least 3 months back, or last 6 months, or this year, to see the artificial streams. It won't appear for anyone filtering the last 7 days or a month, just because of how backdated that information is, how we receive it from Spotify. But this is directly determined by the folks over at Spotify, and they're considered non-monetized streams. So those streams are zeroed out. So I hear it a lot from our support team, and they're like, oh, I didn't get paid for X amount of these streams. Go check out the artificial stream section in the additional information portion of this analytics portal, because there might be a situation where those are considered non-monetized streams from Spotify because they have flagged it for botted activity.
Now, is there a situation where it's not just non-monetized streams, but will Spotify do something, maybe take your account down?
They just recently announced their new penalty process, and I know a lot of people thought this was like the end of DIY distributors. I hate to break it to everybody, but we'll pass on the corresponding fines received from your activities to you guys, right? Because ultimately we aren't necessarily participating in these botted activities, and it's something to be mindful of. It's 90% or more. So as you can see here, very far from that. And it's very hard to get that. You have to be intentionally botting in order to receive 90% or more artificial streams on your music. But if there's 90% or more of your streams are deemed artificial, Spotify won't only remove your songs from their system. I will also mention that they might remove it. They're allowed to. They reserve the right to remove it even before it hits 90%, but will automatically remove it if they don't. And you might be subject to a $10 fine per track that is flagged for 90% or more artificial streaming. Again, it's hard to get there accidentally. I hear it sometimes. People are concerned that they might pay, and this is a real concern. You might pay for a marketer that does get you over that 90% mark. Be very mindful and wary and thoughtful about who you're hiring to be a part of your team. You are responsible for the people you hire to service your music. None of our activities will ultimately get you there, but if there's a third-party playlister that is ultimately up to no good and wants to, show you results on the front end, now they're getting called out for, and this is the process for monitoring that to ensure your music can remain compliant. So I don't know if there's any questions on that, but I know it's a very new and ultimately at times can be frightening part of the music business. But I think a lot of distributors, including Two Lost, are doing a really good job of setting up processes for you guys to monitor this stuff, but also, there's going to be more and more transparency on this stuff it's ultimately better for the entire industry if there's no botted activities infecting charts and placements, and kind of like helping it be a more healthy competitive market in general.
Yeah. Don't try to cheat the grind. Don't try to cheat. There's no try to take any shortcuts, no fake streaming.
It already doesn't feel good, guys, I'm sure, getting there without, not doing it the right way, but now you're also getting in trouble for it. So definitely do it, slow and steady wins the race type of mindset. Devices over here, pretty straightforward. I think this is more helpful for people running ad campaigns to better understand where they want to target their ads. It's pretty interesting to be able to see where people are consuming just for transparency's sake. It's fun. Sources, breaking down again specifically on Spotify, where your people are streaming your music on the Spotify product, age groups, and gender. So you can see the identified user identifies as a certain gender, or if they don't, and then if there's a age group as well. Again, demographic information is really helpful for targeted ads, but also just better understanding, where your audience kind of sits within these age groups and demographics. So that's the Spotify data. We intend to add a lot more insightful information across each and every platform. But again, we wanted to get this up and running and available to everybody. I'll jump into, do you see this, by the way, Dame? I just moved into another tab. I want to make sure it's still sharing.
No, I see it. But I want to take just a step back, because I know a lot of artists aren't even really diving into their data yet. And they're not understanding kind of how important, how powerful it can be, how much money it can save them if they are advertising. I mean, we talked about some of this already just a few minutes ago. But do you have any comments on just like how artists should be using their data, what kind of decisions they should be making from their data?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it is always a good benchmark to understand how you're performing, less of like a trophy. I mean, it is nice to be able to see, I got, if you have a goal for yourself, I want to get 1 million streams. Okay, I hit 1 million streams. It's nice to be able to see that visually. And like, I understand that's an important value add, that transparency. I mentioned that before. But yeah, I don't think you need to be a data scientist necessarily to at least make some thoughtful, insightful decisions based on this information. I mentioned before ads, like you can give you a real world example. If you ever played around like Facebook ads or Instagram ads, you can toggle and target your demographic and your audience, based on, this information. So you can see, okay, 48% of my audience is United States. But my second biggest territory here is Canada. And that's a lot of streams coming in from Canada. Maybe, sure, I can target United States. I'm an artist from the United States. I don't know if that'll be necessarily massive, but what do you want to get out of it? Do you want to go tour internationally? Maybe you start by running an ad campaign in Canada using this information based on, again, the age groups, the genders you can target. These platforms, these ad platforms, Google AdWords, Facebook ads, TikTok ads, they allow you to toggle this stuff. You can check the devices and you might save some money because it's very expensive and difficult to target ads directly to the United States, a very populous country with a lot of people using their phones and a lot of people trying to compete for their attention in those demographics. But, these are all pretty popular countries. But, if you found something like Poland being a pretty, much less popular country by population standards of, ultimately still an attentive marketplace here for someone like Ben. It could be more cost effective for him to advertise in Poland. I'm not necessarily saying he's going to capture all of Poland's, fans for Ben Beal's music. I don't know if they convert or not, but it's worth trying. A lot more cost effective, and ultimately you could find them. We've seen it. We've seen artists that like had homepage takeovers or ad campaigns in countries like Taiwan. Next thing you know, they have massive dedicated fan bases out there that are streaming their music, and it became their third most actively engaged listener country. I will mention that I think a lot of people look at the stuff on Spotify first and they say, that's interesting, and then they kind of walk away, not really taking that information for what it could be, just seeing it as, okay, this is my audience, right? But I think there's real actionable items, being able to use this information to create marketing campaigns that ultimately drive, or I guess, influence those countries. And a lot of the times you'll spend less, get more bang for your buck spending in countries that aren't, your top country. If you're a United States centric artist, if you're from the US, you have your friends and family and kind of local territory, knocked out already. Not necessarily you can't capture more of it, but it might be a cool strategy. And this has been something independents have done for years, right? You hear about stories of like Sub Pop marketing Nirvana in the UK before they marketed them in the US. Like, it's more cost effective, right? And it ultimately could be a massive benefit for their career. So I think that this is just one example. Again, you can also, there's plenty of amazing labels and managers that use Tulos that are able to make real actionable items based on this information in here. But I think starting to monitor this stuff, stay on top of it, be aware of it is really important. Being an independent artist is running a business, and there's not many successful businesses out there that don't look at the data and their P&L and where they're succeeding and where they're not, and making changes accordingly based on that information. So I really think it's important for people to start tapping in with this information and making it a habitual part of their rollout strategy, because there is real insights here, real information that can influence the performance of their next release. People aren't just going to, even if you're very popular, people listening, it's all relative, right? So the only way to kind of impact growth with your own actions outside of just putting out better music is going to be, utilizing this data and figuring out where you can, best influence your audience.
Yep.
I can dive into Apple if there's no questions, or unless you have anything else to
say. There's some questions coming in and I see them, but we'll get to questions towards the end of the presentation.
Cool. Apple data, pretty straightforward, except they do have some other caveats to their product, which is interesting. Obviously Apple acquired Shazam, and this is a really cool way. It looks like you might not have any Shazams in this time frame. Let me see if we go 6 months here to try this one out. Here we go. You can see Shazam information, the corresponding countries, the tracks that have Shazams. That's pretty cool, because that shows a dedicated listener, right? If someone's Shazamming their music, they're going out of their way. I don't know how many people still use Shazam, but if you are, that means you're really into the song and you have enough intent to want to listen to the song later. So cool information that we collect. Obviously corresponding tracks. The same thing as Spotify here, age groups, gender. This is information that's a little different than the Spotify information, which is subscription type. We have the information of the corresponding subscription available. So whether it's a family plan, an individual monthly plan, student plan, this is important because obviously these plans are priced differently. So if your royalties are looking maybe smaller than you thought or larger than you expected, it's important to look at the breakdown of where the listenership is coming from. People pay less for a family plan than they would for an individual plan. So this is interesting information. This is also cool because, as you guys know, I'm sure Apple has the Siri product, and this is voices attributing to people asking their Siri product to, hey Siri, 1 second. Hey Siri, go ahead, and it keeps turning my phone on when I say that. They say something to somebody to play a song, and it ultimately is a cool way of also showing intent to listen. So interesting information there as well, and sources. And this goes down to the corresponding playlists, the stations. Apple has a very unique product where it's extremely, less kind of discovery focused, let's say, as Spotify is, but more like intentful listenership. I think because of their iTunes it's a product evolution from iTunes where people had downloaded music historically. So it's definitely interesting to run through these sources and see how people are consuming your music. And we make that all available to you in this nice, shiny dashboard. So we do know that Apple also historically showed less data than they do now for us. So we do have this little pop-up here that says if you're not seeing a release, it looks like Ben might be missing some Shazam data. There's a little dialog box on what to do. And then our team can remap said data for you historically. But again, this is also important for an ongoing basis. There's some real insights from the historical data, but we're most excited about making sure you can collect your data on an ongoing basis every day to ensure you have a really solid understanding of how your music's performing now, not just before. Before I jump into the next platform here, and again, these are all pretty similar products here before we get to TikTok and Meta, but I want to make sure if there's any questions or thoughts from you, Dave.
Nothing that looks Apple specific. There are some good questions in here. I'm going to get to as many as I can, again, kind of after we get through this presentation.
So I'll jump into Deezer over here. Deezer.
There was a question before. It said, can you tell which group or playlist provided the artificial streams?
Not now. I'm actually intrigued by that. Let me look into that because there might be some sort of common ID between the flag of artificial streaming to the source. I'm not sure. That's great feedback though. I can check on that if we already have that information. If not, I might flag that to our friends over at Spotify and check. There are some privacy concerns currently with some of the artificial stream data as it's still being rolled out, but I'm sure they have the same common goal of knocking this stuff out. And if we know the source of where the artificial streams are coming from, that can be really helpful. I will mention that because we show the ability to pull down by an individual release, an individual track, and then see the playlist stream counts, you can kind of deduce this. You can use that information to it's not going to be too out of the ordinary if you see a random playlist that has you already have the common understanding of what kind of to look for, which is songs that don't really match the same genre or kind of speed or curated feel, a country song being matched with a bunch of random Latin music, and then a random drill hip hop song, and all being mashed into the same playlist. And then it's created by someone that doesn't seemingly have influence but has thousands and thousands of followers, and then you see a bunch of artificial or total streams coming from that playlist, and it's skewing the artificial stream metric. You could probably assume that other playlists aren't having much significant streaming behavior, so you can kind of assume that that playlist is the one that's causing the issues. But I think it might be interesting for us to dive in and figure out how we can maybe make that more clear for you. But no, so the answer is currently we do not show you exactly the tie between the source and the artificial streams, but I'm going to look into see if we can, and if not, raise that as a potential product update for our friends over at Spotify.
Cool. There's another question. I'm going to put it on the screen because I'm not sure if I follow it. Just some feedback on what, I guess it's just feedback. Some feedback on what you guys could add would be a sort of walkthrough of what social medias to set up things like Spotify for artists would be a great help. I'm not sure I follow that.
Got it. Yeah, maybe we'll dig into that one afterwards. I'm not actually sure if I'm following with that either. If they want to post some clarification in the comments, I'm happy to address it. Cool. I'll dive into Deezer then. Pretty straightforward. Obviously, having a significant streaming activity in France makes sense. It's a French product. Gender, age groups, and devices breakdown. Pretty straightforward. It's a streamer. A lot of these things are going to be the same across this, but again, still helpful insights. You can sort by corresponding period of time. Again, it's pretty fast, pretty dynamic. You can navigate this pretty seamlessly. So that's Deezer. And we'll dive into TikTok, which I'm sure a lot of the active musicians and labels are going to care about, at least, if not the most, one of the bigger priorities. TikTok, again, because it's not a streamer, has different data sets. They have total video creations and total views. So on, obviously, the video creations. You can filter this by all releases. Again, the same time frames. I'm at 6 months right now on all releases. The additional information we provide are your total comments on content using your music, the corresponding likes on content using your music, the corresponding shares, favorites, and average watch time. And average watch time is going to always be probably seemingly under 10 seconds because it's just a short form platform. So it makes sense that that's going to be low engagement in seconds. Country breakdown. This is interesting because I think it's pronounced Doyen or Duyen. Probably, if I watch the testimonies of the CEO at Congress, I know he talks about it a lot. But obviously, the Chinese product and the American product are different products, but both owned by ByteDance, and we allow you to break down your engagement across the two. It looks like Ben Beal's music actually has some significant streaming in China, which is really interesting to see and totally interesting. It's cool. And it looks like it's obviously coming from the Chinese product here. So cool information. Again, something new I learned about Ben's catalog today by looking at the analytics portal. And again, you can break it down by views as well on a daily basis. Really helpful, especially if you're, again, a label managing a massive catalog of a lot of releases to better understand how your entire engagement across your entire catalog is experiencing success or not on the TikTok realm. If you want to dive into a specific release, you can do so. You can see total video creations, total views, and then obviously this information updates as well based on the release you're choosing. So that's TikTok. Again, we intend to add more information on this as well. The goal was to just get this up and running, and adding things later on is super easy.
As long as TikTok still exists in this country.
True. I mean, in theory, if it doesn't exist in the US, I don't know how the data laws will work, but ultimately we are a worldwide distributor and we have a lot of clients from a lot of different countries. So you might not have US as a major territory on here, but you might have it in the many other countries that TikTok is available in. So we'll see, and we'll obviously be mindful that that's still an ongoing case. But I'm going to be completely honest, I don't use TikTok, so I don't mind if it goes. I know it's a really awesome tool, though, for artists, and it would be really sad to see an awesome promotional opportunity be unavailable for artists, at least in the US.
For sure.
We got Meta here. This one's pretty cool because I think we're actually the only distributor that currently shows Meta data. I think some show TikTok now, most probably show Spotify and Apple data. Meta is a pretty interesting product here because you're going to be seeing total usage. So how many times your songs are actually utilized across Meta's services, whether that's an Instagram post, an Instagram story, a Facebook, they're called Reels, I believe, or Instagram Reels, Facebook videos, whatever Meta property is utilizing your music, you'll see in the corresponding sources here. So again, you can break it down by release or the time frame. You'll see the graph here, the daily usage, and then the corresponding sources as well. Instagram music sticker. I'm sure anyone here familiar with Instagram knows you can add like a song to your story and it comes up in a little sticker icon. You can see how many people are doing that. And events means how many times it was utilized on the product. So this is people sharing from Facebook to Instagram. So really insightful information here just to see how your music's consumed on the biggest social services in the world. And you can see the country breakdown as well. Again, pretty straightforward, pretty basic, but at least informative and probably is helpful, especially as on Facebook Ad Manager, for example. You can choose if you want to do an Instagram Reel campaign or an Instagram in-feed campaign, for example. And seeing that he has the most engagement occurring on Instagram Reels, it could be an insightful decision to go ahead and promote the ad on Instagram Reels only and conserve some of the cash for targeting an area where there's high conversion already. So, helpful information for sure. Any questions on that? Feedback?
No, not that specifically.
Cool. I guess I can dive into usage discovery here. This is an interesting one and a proprietary offering from Two Lost. I can confirm that no other distributors are doing this yet because we built this out with our friends over at PEX, and it's extremely unique and super exciting because there's a lot of down the line pipeline potential for this offering. But in the meantime, we don't allow you to filter yet by time frame and release. We are adding that very soon. This is catalog overview only for songs that are in our usage discovery offering. As a reminder, that's not included with our basic kind of upload and distribution product. It's available here on the sidebar. You can opt in songs at your leisure. It's completely optional, but this data does come with it. There is an additional charge. To my understanding, it's about $1.50 per song per month. And that is a usage charge to obviously monitor. Think of it as like a content ID of the internet. So it will monitor your music's consumption behaviors and production behaviors across the entire social web. So not just on platforms where your music's licensed, but places like Twitter, anywhere someone can post a song or obviously your song to other individuals. So new productions, meaning maybe I'm a YouTuber and I use your music, and it's non-content ID, but I at least want to monitor how it's being consumed. You can put it into usage discovery, and every time your song is used on YouTube or TikTok or Twitter or Instagram or an Apple podcast, we'll flag that and show you the corresponding data from those matches. So you can see in Ben's account, he has 15,404 matches for the songs that are currently in usage discovery. You can see the corresponding views, shares, comments, and likes for those songs, as well as the corresponding sources here. So you can see things like Twitch clips or Apple Podcasts, like I mentioned before, or Spotify podcasts, things that, again, wouldn't normally be part of your, I guess, quote unquote, distributor data stack. You're not normally seeing this information, especially places like Twitter that have long been criticized for, but currently don't license music. You still have your music being shared on those services. We're in the belief that you should be able to access the data of those consumptions. So this is really helpful, really cool. You can scroll down here and see the corresponding songs, the duration of the match, how many matches have occurred on those corresponding songs, and the average time that it's being utilized. Again, the actual matches themselves. So if I want to look up one of Ben's songs here and filter by this song, I can then see all the corresponding matches, the corresponding platform, the views, how long it's been being tracked for. So I see worm food here on TikTok. I can click details and I can see the title of the content created utilizing Ben's music, the corresponding user account that used the music, the source of where it's being used, the user's URL, the corresponding views that are, again, attributed to the source material, the shares, the usage percentage total, the total length of a copy. And again, the copy is referring to the discovery. Where you consider obviously the source material to be the song itself, but then you can see how much of the segment is being matched.
I know some people might see this feature and be like, "Oh man, this is how many people I'm going to sue," and maybe there's some people that you might need to track down legally. But I look at this more as a potential relationship building tool. Like, oh wow, this podcast is using my music. Maybe it's a podcast. Maybe you can reach out to them, let them know, hey.
I have a cool case study on this with Peloton. We licensed to Peloton. I know we just on our social media announced, some cool facts around how Peloton is actually the highest paying DSP. I've seen an artist flag a Peloton instructor. So there was a Peloton instructor that was using their music on their personal Instagram, and they didn't probably know or care or understand that they could actually use the song in their Peloton classes, but they teased their Peloton class with song on Instagram, and this picked it up. And that artist went ahead and direct messaged that Peloton instructor saying, "Hey, here's an early listen to my next song. I see you're a fan. By the way, my music's available on Peloton." That Peloton placement that they secured is, $5,000, $10,000. It's an awesome win, a way to make new business from just utilizing this information to make these, again, insightful business decisions. I'll also mention, like you said before, there is a good point to it. This is a lot of times unlicensed material. I've thought about this. We haven't added it yet, but I want to do it. Adding a filter to filter by users that are flagged as top 500 companies on the S&P. So if Facebook has an official profile or Apple and they're using your stuff, a lot easier to sue one of those guys that has a lot of money sitting around for unlicensed users than an everyday fan. You don't want to go around suing your fans. I don't recommend it. But companies like Apple that have tons of money, or Amazon that ultimately have the ability to pay for your art, that don't pay for your art, deserve a cease and desist in the mail. You know what I mean? And you can make some good money from that. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna add that yet. I don't want to tick people off, but it is something to think about as you find these popular matches. And we do filter these matches by total views. So you should be able to see the more popular stuff first, but you can, again, scroll and search accordingly. And then if you click this source, it'll actually bring you to the exact video that's performing your music. So a pretty cool feature. Again, only on Too Lost do we provide this information to you, at least currently, and we're going to continue to improve it to make sure, even if it doesn't stay that way, that we're doing it the best.
Yeah. It looks like we have on YouTube, we have Jeremy Wineapple in the comments answering some of your questions. So I appreciate that, Jeremy. We're going to try to get some more questions in maybe.
I will mention that also, applaud Jeremy for a second. Jeremy is one of our senior data scientists, and he is a big reason why we were able to introduce the analytics portal as quickly as we did, and as well as it is performing. He's a fantastic team member and very appreciative of all of his work.
Greg, what are just, whether we rolled them out in the last update or not, what are some of the more unique features that you're excited about on our platform?
That are currently on the platform?
Yes. And then we'll wrap it up with like what we plan to, what you can share in terms of our plans in the near future.
For sure.
For questions.
For sure. So we recently introduced this audience update. This is brand new. This allows you to store and consolidate and view all of the fans that have engaged with your pre-save links. That was in a previous update and is a really cool part of the site as well. I'll pop it up over here. Our release link function. Every time you create a release on 2Lost, you receive a pre-save link. It's a 2.fm link. It's a partnership with our friends over at Feature FM. This allows you to immediately share a link that you can change the information on, but it autofills and change the order. You can edit the extension of it. But this link, I'll pop it over here. An example is a release link that kind of allows you to quickly engage with any of the platforms your music's available on and share with your fans. And this release link, actually in the analytics area, I'll show you, also has corresponding analytics and data. This is your aggregate of all your performance of your release links. So this is all really cool, and it's been available for a while. We actually had release link analytics available for quite some time, probably 2 years now. But what we just added is an extension of this feature, which is kind of a CRM, so to speak, of all of your past pre-savers all in one place. You can filter it by service, by age, subscription type. You have their corresponding emails. I'm going to be mindful that some of these people are actually real emails, so we're going to jump out of there for a second. I'll just talk about it. But those emails are fans that have consented to allow Ben to store their information because they want to know when Ben is releasing more music. And Ben can use that information to directly engage with some of his more, intentful fans. He can also bulk import fans from other mailing lists. Again, I'm going to stay away from his personal data here for a sec. But on that page, there's a button where you can import directly a CSV fan. So maybe Ben and his team are going to have a merch booth at their next show, and they want to write down some emails or people that allow them to buy a sweatshirt. You get $5 off. You give me your email or something. He can take that list and go ahead and import it into his audience section here. And then future releases, they'll be notified of these 2.fm links. We're also adding a feature very soon. This is a nice, kind of extension of this product called our Fan Blast tool. And this will allow you to notify those fans. Again, they'll have the ability to unsubscribe just to consent to some, different data, laws. But you can notify them if you have an upcoming tour, maybe you have a new merch drop, maybe just a new release, or you want some feedback on a song that you're working on. You have a demo link and you want to shoot it around to some of your top fans. You're able to select the fans, notify them being Fan Blast, and that's coming as the next kind of extension of that audience feature. But in the meantime, you can manually add fans, you can bulk import fans, and you can automatically populate said fans from those release links into that audience section. That's brand new. We just added that. I'm not going to pop into Ben's wallet, but we did have in the wallet function a new added feature, which allows you to send money to other users. We obviously have royalty splits, and that's important, but sometimes people forget to set those up in time. Maybe they don't want a static royalty split, like a one-off payment to a producer or a friend or a lawyer or whatever. They can send money directly from their wallet without having to transfer it out themselves to kind of expedite. It's like a Venmo built into the 2Lost platform. That was a new addition that was added in this new update. While we're on the reports page here, I think we do reports better than any other distributor. Obviously, you have a breakdown of your all of your sales reports and the ability to kind of aggregate these by different subjects. But we also have other types of reports outside of your sales reports. I think most distributors nowadays, if your distributor doesn't provide you with an exportable sales report, you probably should think about using another distributor because that's a massive transparency problem. But we also provide other exportables, catalog overviews with all your metadata, your royalty, split reports, and we also provide transactional history, payout history. That release link data I was mentioning before, you can actually generate this here as well. We break it down to different formats, your full audience, top fans. These are people that have pre-saved 2 or more of your releases. and influencers. These are people that have more than 100 followers on Spotify or Apple Music. So if you want to do a campaign targeting people that have pre-saved your music, again, intentful, engaged, so to speak, super fans. I think a lot of the majors are now calling them super fans and just tapping onto this trend, but this has been here for a while. It's really important to make sure you're prioritizing the fans that actually thoroughly enjoy your music and want to engage with you. We have additional reports here. Spotify discovery mode, opt-ins, your usage discovery, detailed matches, your platform IDs, your delivery log reports, the Spotify playlist placements. I mentioned that before. We only show the top playlists visually in the analytics board, but this allows you to download all of them. And exchange rate reports. This one's fairly new. Thought it was a cool transparency to show them, even because we as a distributor receive your royalties in so many different currencies, but we pay you in USD. We make it transparent, the different exchange rates that go into effect to convert that currency into the USD currency we pay you in. And then again, the stream data we showed you before is also available for export, as well as raw data. And this data is a little bit more, I guess, so to speak, bulk and big. If you have 1 million streams, it means you have 1 million lines of data here, because every stream has its own line. So I definitely recommend not using this report as frequently as your stream data report, which is more like a daily accessible report. This is more like if you do manage your own platform, or you have a large label that uses, like a Curve or some of these other new banking apps that kind of consolidate your information in one place. We work with a lot of them already, but if they aren't compatible with our delivery feeds, you can pull this information and manually import it into those products. So I think our reports is definitely something we always constantly try to add more reports to, and you guys will see over the next weeks. We'll always continue to, in our weekly updates, add new types of reports. And I think we do a good job of that as well. Other than that, I talked about already. Usage discovery is something I'm really excited about, and I think social consumption and better understanding how your music's being consumed is only going to become more and more important to people. And I think we do a really good job of prioritizing features around things like this. So definitely continuously enthusiastic about our usage discovery product.
Nice. All right, let's try to answer some questions before we wrap it up. We got about 8 or 9 more minutes here. Let's see. Louis Blue Strips asked, does Tulos do back catalog distribution deals, incentivizing artists to move their whole catalog to the platform?
Yes. I can actually share my screen once more, if that's all right, Dame, and I'll show you exactly where you can engage with us on back catalog consolidation. So you make it super easy. So we actually have in your release manager a little button here called transfer in. So I know you asked about the deals themselves, but I'll first tell you how to consolidate your catalog. You can use bulk import tools if it's a massive catalog, but that transfer in button is super easy to use. You can set right here, and I can type in an artist. Again, I'm not actually going to transfer in Drake's stuff, but it's a good example. His releases from Spotify will populate here. We use the Spotify API for this information, so it's the exact information that's listed publicly. So there's no loss of metadata or information when you do these catalog consolidations. I'll choose a single here. You see it pops up right here. Maybe I'll do 2 singles for this example. Press transfer now. It's fairly fast. You'll see it's already populated those releases. You might still have to add, that was that little pop-up before saying I understand. You might still have to add some information there, but this information will populate and allow you to quickly move over catalog. It comes in as a draft, so you can finalize it within the uploader. And you can see here a lot of that information is already populated. And yeah, that's the transfer in process. Now, the advanced funding, we have a little tab over here to kind of make your monetary portion of the deal make sense. You can see funding options directly here. And Ben, if you have a problem with this later, I'll jump in real quick. You can call me, and I apologize in advance, but this is in our wallet, we actually have an advanced tool. So you can see your estimated available advance. You can click apply. This populates with an available advance for your collaborators that you might have the rights to, or your own releases. It looks like he's already request pending here, but if I want to select maybe Potsu, I own a couple tracks with Potsu. Let's say you can confirm here that you own those tracks. You continue. You can opt in the songs you're allowed to opt in. You can't opt in songs that aren't controlled by your account. You click submit. It's as easy as that. It'll generate you an advance option, and you'll see something in your email within a couple hours notifying you of the available deal we can give you. So yes, we do advances, and yes, we incentivize you for consolidating that catalog because it'll make those advance offers bigger.
And I see there's a gentleman here named Slime is asking a question. He's having some difficulty with Apple Music. Normally, Slime, not avoiding your question. It's just a question that's very specific to you, but I'll put it on screen and see if we have anything to say. Having some difficulty with Apple Music with duplicate releases.
Yeah, I can speak on this. I've heard about this increasingly more. I will mention that a lot of these platforms, we work with 470 stores and services. A lot of platforms have their own content guidelines, their own ingestion parameters, and we need to kind of live within all of those. If there's any specific issues with specific stores and services for your specific releases, I definitely think notifying our support team who can assist you with that is the best step. Things will come up. It's unrealistic to assume if you have 100 tracks and are delivering them to 470 stores and services, some of those stores and services might have issues with your content. I think the distributor's job doesn't just end post-delivery. There's a lot of troubleshooting that's expected. So I can't speak on, again, unique situations why Spotify or Apple or Deezer might delist your content or not make it available. It sounds like you might know already, which is the duplicate release scenario. So I just definitely make sure reaching out to their team or ours. It sounds like something that can absolutely be solved.
Cool. All right, a couple more questions. If an artist switched over from DistroKid to 2Lost, will the streaming data from the release catalog be transferred on 2Lost, or will the data start over?
So your streaming numbers and view numbers for public platforms like Spotify will remain, and the integrity of that will remain. But the data that we show you is from the stream one, your first stream you received while you're hosted on 2Lost. We don't actually have the availability to pull data from companies like DistroKid, where they're the provider and they're receiving that data directly from Spotify. We can only show you the data we receive directly from the stores and services. So the minute you have your first stream or sale on 2Lost, you'll see the data from those stores and services.
Okay. Is there a file size limit to upload immersive audio in the release manager?
I think that's more of a browser thing than our actual, like you might have a timeout issue with a file that big. I definitely recommend reaching out to support where you can provide them those files and they can diagnose that for you.
There you go. Is there a reason I shouldn't list with all 400 services?
I don't think so. I think it's availability, regardless of the price they're paying, because again, most of the bigger stores and services are obviously going to be the larger dependency of your monthly earnings. But I think availability, especially in this competitive market, is super, super important. So just being in as many places, especially if it's licensed, as possible. Data, opportunities. There's so many other values outside of the corresponding dollar you can receive, building relationships. So I think being in as many places as possible is definitely important.
Indeed. And maybe we'll wrap it up with this one. Any sneak peeks, maybe not a sneak peek, but just an explanation of like up and coming features.
So I mentioned the Fan Blast. I also alluded to the fact that we're going to be introducing more analytics over the next couple of weeks. We are adding Amazon Analytics, and we are also adding Peloton Analytics next. And then the intent is to then add Pandora and YouTube in the following months. You guys can harass Jeremy Wineapple about that because he's doing a fantastic job with it. Has more answers there. Fan Blast is a cool one. We're introducing team management is going to be available pretty soon, and that allows you to add other authorized users to manage your account and permission-based management. So if you want to restrict their availability to maybe withdraw your money, but still post a release, you can permission toggle different team members, your lawyer, your manager, your label to your account. So that's pretty exciting. Those are probably the only three I can tell you about right now, but definitely a lot of really exciting updates in the coming weeks.
Yeah. So as you guys can see, and you've heard over the past hour, like that's one of the reasons why I joined this team, is because like we're constantly like evolving the platform, just new ideas, fresh ideas. We field ideas from the community. Sometimes we get ideas internally, but we're just constantly evolving the platform. And I think that's really dope and unique, so that we're, just on top of the game. Greg, any last final thoughts, suggestions for artists, anything you got for them?
Suggestions for we're here to help. I know sometimes it's easy to point fingers at your distributor and tell them that they did something wrong, or even if they do something right, it's kind of expected. We understand that. We're not asking you for thanks necessarily, but I will say, like Dave mentioned, we are definitely open to feedback and suggestions. I want to make this product as amazing for you guys as possible. So feel free to provide us with as much constructive, is all I ask, criticism towards the product, because we are looking to introduce new features every day. And you guys know what you guys need, and we can build that for you. So please feel free to give us suggestions. I see we're running up on the hour here, and I just want to also thank everybody for allowing me to speak for a full hour, as most of my friends and family and colleagues know I love to talk. So hopefully Dave invites me back on here soon.
No, this was great. It's been one of our more engaged sessions. It looks like our numbers continue to grow. I think, Greg, we got to raise the production value of office hours, man. I need to get a producer.
Let's have a conversation about it. Now, since I've been able to experience it myself, maybe we can put some budget allocation towards it.
So, all right, well, this has been another episode of Two Lost Office Hours. We're live every Monday at 12 p.m. Pacific. Join us. Next week, we'll have my guy Gregory joining us. He's also from the Contraband Agency. He's the business partner of Brandman Sean, who we had on a couple weeks ago. It was a dope session, so we'll have him on. And then we just got really dope guests every single Monday. So make sure you tap in, set your calendars as a reminder, and we'll see you then.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Peace.